Hi everyone! So today we're going to work on seventh chords. In our chord chart today we have dominant seventh, major seventh, and minor seventh chords. Even though the diminished seventh chords are not in our chord chart today, we're still going to talk briefly about the fully diminished seventh and the half diminished seventh so that you can be aware of them and use them if they come up in your chord chart. Just as a side note, so seventh chords are very common in pop and jazz music. Often the sevenths of the chords do not have to resolve downward like they do in classical music, and that's part of the distinctive sound of the jazz in the pop world, is allowing the seventh to hang out there and not resolve. But for the purposes of this video, in order to stay consistent with what's taught in the classical textbooks and in the Roman numeral analysis and the chorale style writing of soprano, alto, tenor, bass, we're going to try to meet the demands that the classical world places on seventh chords as much as possible. There will be times when doing so will be too picky necessarily, and it will not necessarily have that jazz feeling that most renditions would. But the purpose of this is not necessarily how to play jazz. It's just to use this as an example of how to realize chord charts. So keeping this consistent between the classical world and the chord chart world is going to be a little simpler for students. Okay, so we are in F major again today. Let's start with the dominant seventh first. So if we're in F major, what is the dominant of this scale? So that means scale degree 5 or sol. Right, C. So we're going to skip up, and skip up. Now, we need to make this into a seventh chord. So we need a seventh from C. What is the seventh up from C? Right, a B. In the key of F major, we have a B flat. So this is our dominant seventh chord because it's built on scale degree 5, which is called the dominant. Usually, this dominant will resolve to a 1 chord, or the tonic, or a chord built on do. All three of those are terminology that mean the same thing. So, the seventh of the chords needs to resolve down. So, before we talk about resolving it, take a moment and think about what the scale degrees are, or the letter names, for the tonic chord. Right, so if we're in F major, we're going to have F, A, and we're going to have C. Okay, so we have to figure out a way to get from this chord to the F chord, the smoothest way possible. Okay, so we need the seventh of the chord to resolve down. Of these notes, which one is the closest going down from B flat? Right, A. So we'll put A right here. So this one would resolve to A. Now, like we talked about in the other video, T-do still matters. So we still want the leading tone to go to do. And we already have C in this chord. Now, there were 4 notes for the 7th chord, and there's only 3 notes for this chord. That means one of the notes is doubled. Usually the bass will be doubled. So the left hand would play the F as well, or the bass note. Okay, let's talk about it in a different key for a moment. Let's pretend we are in G. Okay, see if you can figure out what the dominant chord of this scale will be. Remember that you need to start on the 5th scale degree. So this is scale degree 1 on G. I forgot to have F sharp showing. Sorry about that. That's an important note in G major. And we also need the 7th up from D, which is C. Okay, now let's resolve this to G. Okay, so the 7th of the chord needs to resolve down by a step. The leading tone needs to resolve up to the tonic, and we have our D. Okay, now let's look at the minor chords. We're going to go back to F major. The first chord in this chord chart, the first 7th chord, is a D minor 7. So we're going to look at that one first. Okay, so we're going to start on D. It needs to be a minor chord. We'll check it on the piano in a minute. And it has to be a 7. So what's a 7th up from D? Right, C. So this is a D minor 7th chord. You can also have inversions of these chords just like you did with the triads in the last video. So this is in root position because the name of the note is on the bottom. So the name of the chord is a D minor 7 chord, so D is on the bottom. Now first inversion, you take this and put it on top. Now you still have the same notes, but in a different order. You have F, A, C, D. Second inversion, you take this note and put it on top. So now you have A, C, D, F. Third inversion, take the A and put it on top. You have C, D, F, A. Now notice if you did it again, you'd be back to the beginning of the root position. Okay, let's look at G minor 7. So we're going to have G, B flat is in the key signature. See if you can fill in the rest of a G minor 7 chord. So a skip up from B flat would be D, and then another skip would be F. Let's look at some of the inversions of this. So this is the root position because G is on the bottom and it's a G minor 7th chord. All skips. G, F, oops, sorry, looking at backwards again. B flat, D, F, G, that's first inversion. Move this one again. Now we have B flat, G, F, D. And now the third inversion. F, G, B flat, D. Do it one more time and we're back to the root position. Okay, the other minor 7th chord in this chord chart is the A minor 7. So let's try that. So here's the A. See if you can think about what notes will be the rest of the A minor 7th chord. Okay, so we have A, C, E, and G. Let's look at the inversions for this. Root position, all skips. First inversion, second inversion, third inversion, and back to root. Cool. Okay, let's look at the B flat major 7th. So first we're going to build a B flat chord, B flat, D, and F. This is a B flat major chord. If it was a B flat minor chord, it would look like this. But we have a B flat major chord. But we also need a B flat major with this major 7th on top. This is an A. B flat to A is bigger than B flat to A flat. This would be a minor 7th. We'll talk about how many half steps that is in a moment when we look at the piano. This functions the same way, except that from here to here is 1 half step bigger than in our minor half steps. Minor 7th, sorry. Minor 7th is 1 half step smaller. But they are asking for a major B flat 7 chord. One thing to note is in our chord chart it says B flat major 7. The major 7 refers to the 7th. This is major. The dominant chord that we looked at earlier was a C7 chord. We had C, E, G, and we had a B flat. C to B flat is not a major 7th. This would be a major 7th because it's bigger. It's only 1 half step away from being an octave. But instead we have this. It's a minor 7th. The difference is the C in the chord chart is a capital C. That means the chord is major. It does not say capital M, A, J for major. It just has a 7. So it's implied that it's going to be the 7 that is the minor 7th. So if they wanted it to be a C major 7, they would have to write it like this. And they would have to write C, capital M, A, J, 7. But a C7 is this. Okay, let's go look at these on the piano. And then we'll come back and look at the diminished chords in the blocks. Okay, now let's talk about the 7th chords on the piano. We talked about them, how they look, just note-wise, note name. But now we're going to talk about it on the piano. So remember that we're in F major. All right, let's talk about the dominant 7th chord. So the dominant of F is C. I'm going to play it down here just so it's easier to see. So we have a C chord, but we have to add a 7th. Now, the dominant 7th chord is a major chord with a minor 7th on top. A minor 7th sounds like this compared to a major 7th. Notice that the major 7th is only a half step away from the octave, from the same notes. The minor 7th has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 half steps. The dominant chord is specifically designed to help lead back to the tonic chord. Okay, so the 7th of the chord is going to resolve down by step. The leading tone is going to go to the tonic, and we're going to keep the same common tone. That was the F an octave below that I played. Okay, just for an example, let's try it in G like we did with the blocks. Okay, so G major. Okay, the dominant of G is what chord? Yes, a D chord. So we're going to have a D major chord. F sharp is because there's an F sharp in the key signature of G major. Also, it makes this a major chord. And dominant chords are major. And we need a minor 7th. So here's the octave. This would be a major 7th, but we need a minor 7th. It needs to be 10 half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so resolving it back to the tonic, which is a G chord. 7th has to go down by a step. leading tone goes to do, and the common tone stays the same. Okay, you can have inversions for these chords. And then you're back to the root. Okay, let's look at some of the minor chords now. So a D minor seventh is built on D. It's a minor triad with a minor seventh. Here's the octave, major seventh, minor seventh. 10 half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is a D minor seventh. Here are the inversions. First inversion, second inversion, third inversion. Oops, sorry. Back to the root. Okay, we're going to look at G minor 7, G minor chord, and a minor 7th. The octave, major 7th, minor 7th. Another one in this chord chart is A minor 7. A minor with a minor 7th. Octave, major 7th, minor 7th. It's also 10 half steps from here to here. Okay, for this chord chart, we are going to try as much as possible to resolve the sevenths of the chord down by a step. So, let's see which one is a good example here. Let's look at the D minor 7th one. Okay, so if we have a D minor 7th that's going to a B flat major chord, we're going to take the 7th of the chord and move it down. These chords can stay the same, they're common tones. It gets a little bit different when we add the bass line in, because the bass line will play one of the notes in the 7th chord. So we're going to hold off on doing any more of those examples for now. But let's look at that B flat major 7. So we have a B flat major chord, because there's no M following the B flat, so it's major. And then it says a major 7th. So instead of having the minor 7th, we need a major 7th. So this is the octave. This is 1 half step less. So this is a major 7th. It is 11 half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. In this case, this is going to resolve to an E minor chord. So this is going to resolve down to the G. Let's look at the D major 7th. Remember earlier we played the G major chord, the G major triad, and we did a D major 7th because it was a dominant. This chord chart also has one, even though we are not technically in G major. We have a D major 7th to go to a G minor 7th. Notice that this is one of the inversions of the G minor chord. Same notes in root position. G, B flat, D, F. So we went from the D Okay, even though the diminished 7th chords are not featured in this chord chart, we're going to go ahead and look at them now. Seventh chords, meaning the one that's built on the scale degree 7. So, yeah, back here, are usually the ones that are the diminished 7th chords. That's so tricky to say. 7th chords, which that means it's a chord on the 7th scale degree that has a 7th as well. Okay, so we're going to do it on scale degree 7, which is E. So we have E, we're going to skip up, and then skip up again. Now, if we follow the key signature, this will definitely be a diminished chord in the major key, because E, G, B forms a diminished chord. This is a minor third, this is also a minor third. Now, to create the half diminished 7th, that means we have a diminished chord, and we add a skip on top. So this is a minor 7th. So here's our diminished chord. This is a minor 7th. To make it a fully diminished 7th chord, that means we lower this. So now we have a diminished chord as well as a diminished 7th. So this is a fully diminished 7th. Okay, let's try it in another key. Let's try it in C major. Okay, so what's the 7th note of the scale in C major? Right, B. Okay, so here's B. I'm going to make triad. So skips up. Okay, now this is already diminished because there's a minor third and another minor third. Now let's make the half diminished 7th. So what's a 7th up from B? Right, A. Okay, this matches the key signature for C major, and this is a minor third, a 7th, minor 7th. So we have the diminished triad with a minor 7th. If we want a fully diminished 7th, we would do it, whoops, sorry, wrong way, flat. So now this is a diminished 7th and a diminished 7th chord. Diminished triad, diminished 7th. This is the fully diminished version. Okay, let's go look at it on the piano now. Okay, let's talk about the diminished 7th chords now. Okay, let's do it in F major. Okay, so here's our tonic. We're going to start on scale degree 7. So we're going to make a diminished chord. Hear how this sounds different than the minor chord. Remember that the minor chord had one minor third of 1, 2, 3 half steps, and then a major third of 4 half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. But a diminished chord has 3 minor thirds. So here's one minor third, 1, 2, 3, and then another one, 1, 2, 3. All right, now to make this into a 7th chord, we need to add a 7th. We're going to do just the half diminished first. So here's our 7th chord, a minor 7th. Remember, octave, major 7th, minor 7th. Now, these are often done in inversions. This is a very common inversion, the very first inversion where you take the E and put it on top. This is what the second inversion looks like. And the third inversion. Okay, Now let's take this chord and make it fully diminished. So we're going to take the 7th and make it even smaller. Let's find out how many half steps the diminished 7th has. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 half steps instead of the 10 of the minor. So the diminished 7th has 9 half steps. These are what inversions look like. First inversion, First inversion, second inversion, third inversion, okay, now let's look at it in C major like we did with the blocks. Okay, the 7th scale degree is B. This is already a diminished chord because it has a minor third, 1, 2, 3, and another minor third, 1, 2, 3, and because it fits the C major key signature. Now, let's make this into a half diminished 7th. So we have the diminished chord. Now we need a minor 7th. There's our half diminished 7th and fully diminished 7th.